Hi guys, welcome back to my kitchen for another video and another Shabbos video. This time we're focusing on summer, all the fresh vegetables coming out of the garden, delicious food, fresh, citrusy, herby, grilled. So let me tell you what we're making and then we're gonna get straight to cooking. Today's actually Friday afternoon. You can see my dishes are done. We have kugel here, we have the challah going over here, we have sneak peek, our beef platter right here, and we're gonna start packing up in just a couple minutes and we're gonna head out. So this week's Shabbos cooking, I actually prepped everything, as you'll see, to be able to take it to go, because we won't be eating at home. We are going to travel not very far. It's like a 15-20 minute drive from my house, but we need to pack up all this food to go. So you'll see how I prepare it for those type of situations. And as you saw with a meat platter, it's all set up to make it a lot easier for when you're with company to have everything set up beforehand. So we are going to be I'm working on some challah that I'm trying to figure out how, a small dough made by hand to make just 2 challahs. And sneak peek teas. I think we found our favorite. I made one last week. We didn't love it, so we're trying a different recipe. I'm making some dips and salads. So we're making tomato dip, Arabian salad, baba ganache, a French onion dip, and for salads we're making a radish salad. It's radish with cucumbers and a bunch of herbs. And we're doing a green gata salad. And then we're making 2 types of fish, a Panko crusted salmon and salmon cubes over salad. And then we're making our meat platter, which I gave you a little sneak peek, which is kielbasa, some sticky soy beef, and corn ribs. And I think that's it that I'm making with you guys. Obviously, there's a lot of more things that made the Shabbos happen, like sourdough and challah and kugel, but I didn't show. Actually, the challah I did show you how I make it, because I made it differently than I usually did in the past. I've started doing it this way recently. So let's get right into it. Let me take you back to yesterday and show you everything that we prepped yesterday and then everything that we cooked today. Okay, the first thing we're going to be doing is cutting up this fish, and I need scissors for it. I forgot to take that out. Okay. Now I do have a bag over here because I want some fish for a dinner one day this week, so I want to make sure that I have slices for that. Otherwise, we are going to cut up some for cubes and the rest will be as a side. So our 2 different fishes that we're prepping. So first thing I'm doing, the first slice usually has an angle to it, so I'm going to use that for our cubed fish. But then I'm going to cut 4 slices. I always like having an extra slice for dinner, because the last, I don't know, few months, I've had people popping by, and it's always good to have an extra in case if somebody comes over, then I can feed them too. Otherwise, I can have it as lunch the next day. Okay, now that I've cut the slices, I'm gonna get that into the bag that I prepped here. I'm not gonna close it up until my hands are clean, but I'm getting some fish on the outside of it anyways because it's slipping out of my hand. Okay, now I'm gonna take the end over here, and that will be for our Panko salmon. So I think that's a very nice size for the amount of people that I'll be feeding this Shabbos. Put that in one pan, and then set that aside. Now, before I cut this even more, I'm gonna get my knife out and we're gonna remove the skin. Okay, skin is off. Beautiful. And we're gonna do the same thing for this little piece over here. Now that we removed the skin from both of them, I'm just going to cut them into cubes. And get them into our pan here. And if you want, you can ask at your supermarket for the fish department. They can probably cube it up for you and skin it for you if you don't feel like doing this at home. I just find it most cost efficient to buy a whole side of salmon, especially because I wanted for the dinner and I wanted the side and the cubed. It's just more cost effective to just buy a whole side, cut it up myself, and do all of this. So let me clean this up. We'll move on to the next thing. Okay, now that that's done, my hands are washed. I'm going to close up this bag. I'm just gonna get them all the flattest possible so that they defrost nicely and easily. I'm gonna get this into the freezer. And now I'm gonna set our cubed salmon into the fridge for now. We'll come back to this soon. Okay, I'm pulling up the recipe for our Panko salmon. Now this is definitely not a full side of salmon. As you saw, we cut it all up. And the recipe that I'm following is for a full size. So I think I can do about half the recipe for this. Now my oven is already preheated for this. It says to put it on a parchment paper. I think I'll do it so that when I go to serve this, it's easier to plate up because it won't be sticking to the pan. Okay, we're gonna start off with some salt and black pepper. And we're gonna drizzle some honey over top. Now I'm not following this recipe exactly. I'm eyeballing the measurements and also because I have a smaller piece of fish. Next up, the recipe calls for spicy brown mustard. I have stone ground Dijon. I'm gonna use this instead. I didn't feel like buying the mustard. I don't really use it. I use the Dijon a lot more, so I'm substituting that. Now I'm gonna take the back of a spoon and spread all of this honey and mustard all over the fish. You can do this with a pastry brush too. Now I'm gonna set this aside, and in a small bowl, I'm gonna add some panko along with the zest of a lemon. And I won't be very thorough with the zesting because I'm doing half the amount of crumbs as the recipe calls for to adjust the recipe to the size of fish that I have. So next we're gonna add in here, actually I will move this aside. I'm gonna bring my cutting board back. It's now rinsed and clean. I have here a bunch of dill. I'm gonna cut off the thick stems. I think we're good now. We're gonna mince this up. No, I don't like this one here. Oh, the smell of this. So incredible. So there's quite a bit of stem in here. I probably could have diced more finely or have had it removed before I started mincing. But we're gonna work with this. Now we're gonna take all of this, except for a little bit that we're gonna leave. and add it into our bowl. And now we're gonna toast this to combine. I think my dill bundle was a lot bigger than whoever built this recipe, because from the picture on the recipe, it doesn't look like it had this much dill. But I think we're gonna enjoy it anyways. I'm gonna get all of this crumb mixture over the top of our fish. And I probably could have done a quarter of the recipe. If we got a nice thick layer in there, and I still got a bunch over here. Let me think what I'll do with this. I'll set it aside for now. Okay, I'm gonna get this into the oven for 25 minutes. Now that we've got our oven working for us, I want to get our stovetop working for us too. So I'm gonna get out my foil and I'm gonna wrap up the eggplant to broil it. Got both of them wrapped up. I'm gonna get them over the fire on the stovetop and roast them for 20 minutes on 3 sides, so for about an hour. And I do it with the biggest flame. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep for another dip that we're making. So I've shown you guys many times that I have garlic cubes and ginger cubes. Now another one that my store sells is onions, which are actually bigger cubes. And just a bunch of sauteed onions. Now this dip that we're making today, I've made in the past with my own sauteed onions and the texture didn't come out the same. So for this dip specifically, it is worth it, if you can find these, to buy this. Otherwise, just dice up your own onions and saute them until they're a gorgeous golden brown color. And I'm gonna set it aside and let that defrost for a little bit until we come back to make that. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a small batch of challah dough. A dough that will make just 2 challahs. I'm trying to do research for a certain project that's coming up, and we tried a recipe last week and we didn't like it, so we're going to try a different recipe this time. I'm going to work with a scale and cups because I want to see if I can get the same measurements as the recipe calls for from the cups. It gives me both, and I just want to see how accurate it'll be. For the flour, the recipe called for 5 cups or 1 1/4 pounds. And on the scale, 4 cups of flour came to 1 1/2 pounds. So I did that. Next, I added 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of oil, 1 egg, 1 1/4 cups of water. Usually you would do warm water. I'm using room temperature water. 3 tablespoons of sugar, and then I'm going to mix it together. So I started with my Danish whisk, mixing it in the bowl like that. Once it is mostly combined, I'm going to start kneading it with my hand, first in the bowl to finish incorporating any dry bits that are left in the bottom of the bowl. And once it's a nice cohesive dough, once they're all stuck together, then I get it onto my counter and I work it on the counter until it's a nice, soft, good dough. Okay, this dough looks and feels beautiful. Well, I added all of the ingredients as you saw, started mixing it in the bowl, and then kneaded it the rest of the way on the counter. Now I'm going to spray this, and we're going to let this rest for 50 minutes. I'm going to let it rise, and I'm going to put it next to the roasting eggplant so that residual heat coming off of the fire will help it go faster. Okay, now we're going to come back to our cubed salmon. I'm going to start off in a small bowl over here with 6 tablespoons of oil. Now I'm going to take out some garlic. I'm going to let it defrost a little bit first. I've done this with garlic powder in the past and it comes out delicious too. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. About 1 1/2 tablespoons of honey. Okay, our eggplants are ready to be turned. So you can do this with either tongs or just 2 forks and turn them over. We're going to add in some freshly ground pepper, some salt, paprika, and some pepper flakes. Now, if you want to mince up your garlic, you can go ahead and do that. I am going to run it through this garlic press. And I'm okay having the little pieces of garlic that I end up with when I do it this way. I'm gonna whisk this to combine. Gotta make sure that that honey is well incorporated. And at this point, our panko fish is done, looking delicious. I'm gonna set it aside to let it cool. And we're gonna quickly finish this fish so it can go into the oven and bake as well. Let me wipe down the counter to clean up those oil spills so that the bottom of the pan doesn't get oily and burn in the oven. So now I'm just going to take this sauce that we made and pour it over the fish. So I'm going to get the tongs that we used for the fish earlier and just help smush all the fish around in the sauce. I can toss it gently, not to break up the slices, not to break up the pieces. Okay, now that they all look covered, I'm gonna lay them out flat so that they're not covering any other slices, nicely spaced apart. So this fish is gonna bake for 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, now I think we're gonna work with our remaining dill here. We're gonna make a sauce that will go over the fish when it's being served. And I'm gonna make it directly in the container that we're gonna store it in. Now, one thing that we're gonna be doing different this week than I usually do is that we're gonna make everything in disposable containers because we are not gonna be home for Shabbos. I'm making all this food and we're taking it to wherever we're gonna be going. I don't want to have to worry about bringing these things home. So by doing it in the disposable, there's no stress about it. Okay, this measuring cup doesn't fit in there. We're gonna start off, ooh, it's good that it doesn't fit because I don't need the full amount. We're doing half the recipe. And even with half, like you saw with the crumbs, it's plenty. So I'm gonna start off with a quarter cup of mayo. A little bit of dill that we set aside, 1 cube of garlic, and as you can see these are significantly smaller cubes than the onion cubes, but it's the same concept. And we're gonna finish it off with the lime that we zested earlier. We're gonna juice half of that lemon, did I say lime? Lemon in here. And this will just bring out more of the same flavors that we have in the fish. Because we have the dill and we have the lemon. It doesn't have garlic, but we're adding that delicious flavor to it. And it'll just amp up the flavor in this dip. Okay, now we're going to mix this together. I might just have to wait a minute or two to finish mixing it because the garlic is still frozen. So we can get going with our next thing. And for that, I'm going to get out my food processor. Actually, let me just set this over here so that I don't forget about it. We're going to start off by making tomato dip, which you guys have seen me make many times before. I'm going to get out another cutting board because the other one is full of dill. Okay, so for these tomatoes, cut them in half and then quarter. Then I turn it and I cut it into eighths. The bottom of the tomato gets put straight into the bowl of the food processor, but the top half I am gonna core. And I feel like this is a super easy way to do it. Just keep it on one of the sides and cut it right out by putting my knife on an angle. Now that we've got the tomatoes in there, we're going to get a bunch of garlic in, along with some pepper and salt. And while this is blending, we're going to be drizzling in some olive oil. Okay, this has now blended for a nice long time and has beautiful color. And that's for our eggplant again, I believe. Yes. Let me flip that again. Okay, now I'm not even going to rinse this because the next thing that we're making will be using the exact same ingredients. Now, I'm thinking I might just be able to fit it into a small container. And again, I'm not going to rinse this either. Just going to set it aside. I'm going to transfer this into our container. Perfect. Am I going to make a mess closing this? Probably. Let me do it over the sink. Perfect. Okay. The next thing we'll be making, I prepped everything here while the tomato dip was going. And let me show you. We're going to put the blade back in. So I prepped the tomatoes the same way that I did for the tomato dip. So cutting it into eighths and coring it. I also have 2 jalapenos that I just cut into big chunks, roughly the same size as the tomatoes, and the equivalent of 8 garlic. So I'm going to get all of this into our food processor bowl here. We're going to add in a 1/4 cup of olive oil, a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and this is our cubed salmon coming out of the oven. And now I did add 5 more minutes because I felt like the oven wasn't hot enough. It wasn't cooking it properly. Didn't have nice color. So I just left it there for another 5 minutes and now it's beautiful. Last thing we need to add to our Arabian salad here, which I don't know if I said that I'm making that, is a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to let this mix until we get a nice chunky consistency. I think this is looking good. Yes. Okay, so this time I am going to rinse all of my equipment here. It's okay if it's not perfectly clean. I just want to get most of it off so that the baba ganoush doesn't taste like tomato dip and Arabian salad. But it's okay if it has a little bit of hint. Most of the people eating the baba ganoush will also have either one of those dips. So now I am going to use a bigger container. I think I can use a small one also, actually. I mean a medium. I believe that this is less than the tomato dip. Whee. Beautiful. I know my husband's going to appreciate this little bit that's left in the bowl here, so I'm going to transfer it into another bowl so that he can enjoy it later. This is now ready for us for when the eggplant is ready. So what are we going to do next? So we can do the onion dip next. Okay, so to our onions here, we're going to add 3 teaspoons of brown sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of water, well, that's a lot more, and 1 cup of mayonnaise. I'm going to mix this together, and it should be super easy to combine it because these onions are fully defrosted at this point. At this point, our garlic in the dill sauce is already defrosted, so we can combine that. I'm going to cover this. Next, we're going to make the salad dressing for our cubed salmon. Oh, I didn't set a timer for it. Challah dough. Okay, for the salad dressing, yes, I have to scoop all the way to the bottom of the jar, so my hand is all mayonnaise-y. We're starting off with a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. Now the recipe does call for fresh garlic, but mine got oily when I made the fish, so I'm just going to use some cubes. You can do either 2 garlic cloves, or I'm going to use 3 cubes, because I feel like it's not like a full clove. A cube is not a full clove. About 2 teaspoons of honey and 2 teaspoons of mustard. I'm going to have to let the garlic defrost in here too, but I can incorporate the honey and the mustard for now. So we're going to set that aside. And what's going to be next? So our eggplant still has a few minutes, so we're going to start with our green goddess dressing, and we need about a third of this baby spinach in there, a half a cup of fresh basil leaves, a half a cup of parsley, 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 2 cloves of garlic. We're going to add 1 avocado, and I really hope that this is good enough because I bought it today and the store didn't have any that were too ripe, but this is actually perfect. This is the easiest way that I find to get it out, to just squeeze the top. Can you see I squeeze the top and the whole thing just comes right out. For something like this where you don't care if you have the texture of it, then this is the perfect way to remove it. I'm getting my board out because I have a shallot here that I'm going to cut open first. And then once it's in quarters, I can get it into the blender here. And now before I start blending, I'm going to pre-measure a 1/4 cup of olive oil. We need about 5 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. So I know that 4 tablespoons is a 1/4. So I'm going to start by juicing the half a lemon that we used for our fish. And I've got another lemon here. I'm going to squeeze this and we're going to see how much I get. And I'm going to decide if I should squeeze another lemon. This one was not very juicy, so I think I might have to do another lemon. Yeah, looks like it. Let me go get another one. We're going to pour this in while this is blending. And then I'm going to continue blending it for 1 to 2 minutes, scraping down the sides in between. That looks beautifully smooth. I did forget to set a timer for our eggplant, so I'm going to have to guess when I think it's done. And I'm going to guess that it's done once I'm done putting all of this away. We're going to transfer all of this into our bowl over here. I think as an assurance that the avocado in here shouldn't brown, I'm going to add the avocado pit in here. Let's hope that I can cover this. Yep. This actually worked. I don't know if it was the lemon or the avocado pit, but it didn't brown. Another thing done. And I just realized that we used up our mayonnaise before. So I'm going to make another batch of mayonnaise quickly, and then we'll get going with the baba ganoush. Okay, now that we've got our mayonnaise ready, I'm going to turn off the heat on our eggplant, and I'm going to start by laying down a towel right here. I'm going to remove the eggplant. Let me move this aside actually, because there will be silver foil flakes all over, and I don't want it to end up in the mayonnaise. Okay, now I'm going to cut a slit into this, and with a spoon I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to scoop out all of the meat from inside and get it into the food processor bowl. And I've done this many times where when it was done roasting the eggplant, I would let it sit and cool off. But every time that I blend this right away, when it's still nice and hot, my family always says that it's better. They don't know that I do it, when I do it how, if I let the eggplant cool or not. But whenever I do, I know that I do. And when I do it like this right away, they know. They can taste the difference. So don't be afraid to handle the hot eggplant, because the end product will be worth it. Just be careful when you're opening up so that, like, not to burn your hands. Work from the side to let all the hot air escape. And now for me, every time, it's a surprise of how much eggplant there actually is inside when I open it up. Because sometimes there's so much moisture in the eggplant that it all just cooks out while I'm roasting it. So I will never have exact measurements for you of the things that we'll be adding, because you just have to go by feel of how much eggplant you got, and then taste it and adjust according to how you would like it to be. And now cleanup is easy because everything is on the towel. To this, I'm gonna add some salt and some garlic powder. I always think to myself that I think roasting garlic and adding it to this instead of garlic powder would be delicious. I always remember that once I'm already at this stage where I'm done with the roasting. So I usually don't do it. Maybe once we get garlic from the garden, I can do that. Okay, so I'm gonna scrape out the previous jar of mayonnaise to get everything out of there before we dig into the new batch of mayonnaise. Okay, I got a decent, probably like a 1/3 cup, so I'm gonna add just a little bit more. And let's blend this up. And this one doesn't take long.
And I'm not fast forwarding this clip. This is actually how long it takes. 5 seconds on the dash and it's done.
And that's it. It's beautifully blended. I'm going to use my mayonnaise spatula and I'll incorporate this little bit of mayonnaise into the baba ganoush as well. Okay, this we're going to have to let cool before we can set it in the fridge. Let's see, what else are we doing today? Okay, the last thing we're going to be doing today is braiding and baking the challah. So let's clean up this place over here a little bit. Look at this. All our dips and salad dressings ready to go. Let me put it in the fridge. Okay, I'm gonna wipe down the counter to make sure that it's nice and clean before we start braiding our challah. I don't want to incorporate any of this into it. Now, to make the challah, you can use either a cookie sheet or some challah pans, which you can find. You can either do a loaf pan or these ones that are rounded at the edges instead of a rectangle. But I think because we're only doing 2, I'm gonna use my sheet pan or baking pan. I'm gonna cover this with parchment paper. I'm gonna set this aside. I actually don't need the entire thing for just one tomato. So I set the tomato on my counter and that can go away. I'm gonna get out flour in case I need it to braid the challah dough. And I think I'll actually move this to here. I think like this I'll have more space to braid. I'm going to get a little bit of flour on the counter. That's plenty. Okay, our challah dough here has risen beautifully. There's something up here on the top. Is that a piece of onion skin? Whatever it is, took that out. So now, oh, this feels like a beautiful dough. Maybe I could have mixed it a bit longer. I'm going to divide it in half. One half goes back in the bowl. The other half, I think I'll braid with 4 today. So I'm dividing them into 4 equal bowls. And I'm going to roll them into strands or ropes. And if you want to get nice volume in the center of the challah, roll the ends thinner than the middle. Leave the middle of the dough thicker. Leave the middle of the rope thicker. And I start with one hand And then slowly I push out with my other hand. And as I'm rolling, I'm moving out to stretch it into a longer rope. Okay, once I have all 4 rolled out, I'm gonna bring it together and I'm gonna pinch the tops. And now I'm gonna number them from left to right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lift up number 3, bring number 1 over number 2, under number 3, over number 4. And now, number 1 became 4, number 4 became 3, number 3 became 2, number 2 became 1. And now we're gonna take, let me think, number 4, and, oh, I need a refresher. Let me start again. Let me see if muscle memory will kick in. Oh, you lift. Okay. So number 1 becomes number 4, and number 4, which is now number 3, I lift up right away. And that's all I'm doing. And when I come to the end, I pinch it again. We've got a beautiful braided challah. I'm gonna set it on the board here. And let me show you again how to braid it. Let me just roll this out into our strips again. You don't have to be accurate here with how much dough is in each dough ball. As long as it feels roughly the same. I mean, if you want, you can weigh them out and get the exact measurement, the exact weight for each of them. It's absolutely not necessary to do that. Okay, got all of them rolled out, getting them together, pitching them at the top. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm gonna lift number 3, bring number 1 over number 2, under number 3, over number 4. Now number 4 has become number 3 because now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to lift the new number 3, bring the new number 1 over number 2, under number 3, over number 4. And I'm going to keep repeating this. Picking up number 3, taking 1 over number 4, and setting it down until it is done. And then pinch it all together. And we've got a second beautiful dough. So I'm gonna let this rest now. I'm gonna preheat my oven. My oven is probably still warm, but I'm gonna preheat it to 350. It's actually not that warm anymore. And I actually didn't need any flour. Did you see that? So now the test for this will be how this bakes up. Because the dough that I made last week, the dough was good. It felt fine. We didn't love the taste. And I didn't like how it baked up. So we're going to see this week how this bakes up and how we like the taste of this once it comes out of the oven. So once I will show you guys before I put this into the oven how I brushed the egg wash over it, and I am using just plain egg whites because I have 2 egg whites from the mayonnaise that I made today. And the mayonnaise that I used up earlier was a fresh batch that I made earlier today. And I have now a second egg white from the second mayonnaise that we made. So I'm gonna brush this with the egg whites. I'm gonna sprinkle some sesame seeds, get this baked up, bake it for 30 to 40 minutes, check to make sure that it's done. And we're gonna see you guys tomorrow when we finish off all of this Shabbos cooking. So when this came out of the oven, we couldn't resist. It smelled so good and it looked so delicious. It baked up beautifully and we just had to taste it. So once it had cooled off a little bit, I cut up a few slices for my family to try it, and this passed the test. So for the project that we are working towards, which is why I'm testing this recipe, this is the recipe that we're gonna go with because it was absolutely delicious. We loved it, and there was not a crumb of this challah left by the end of Shabbos. Okay, so first thing this morning, we're gonna start working on our sticky soy steak bites. And we're gonna start with a piece of meat. Now this recipe is from delish.com and it calls for a sirloin New York strip ribeye cut into 1-inch cubes. I'm gonna cut these into 1-inch cubes. This one might have too much fat over here, so I'm gonna try to cut away at it. This piece also has mostly fat. I'm not gonna use it. I don't think any one of us will enjoy that too much, because it won't have time to render off completely. Okay, I think we're done with our really fatty pieces here. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna finish cutting these. Okay, now that I've got all of this cubed, I'm gonna wash my hands for the first time now. It's not gonna be the last. I'm gonna sprinkle 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda over these meat cubes. I forgot to check how many pounds of meat this recipe calls for and how many pounds of meat I have here. So I'll just follow the quantities that the recipe says. Okay, and then we're gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. I'm gonna toast this so all of them get covered on all the sides. Now the recipe does say to do this in a bowl, but I want to build the dressing in a Ziploc bag to make it easier. So I'm doing it like this. It looks like it's all well coated, well distributed, and the baking soda will help tenderize the meat. Okay, so for the marinade, I'm getting a bag out. We're starting with 1 tablespoon of chili sauce. And the recipe does say to use a chili garlic sauce. I don't have one, and I wasn't gonna buy it just for this one recipe. So I'm gonna put in one of my garlic cubes in here for that garlic flavor. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon of hoisin sauce. Hoisin sauce is a very thick soy sauce. Like you saw that thick paste, how it came out of the bottle. 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. And last will be 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I'm not gonna close it right now, but I'm just gonna mix it together like that in one of the edges of the bag. I just gotta make sure that that garlic is defrosted and combine that into the sauce. I think we're good. So now I'm gonna transfer the meat over here into the bag. Let me wash my hands again and the board. Okay, now that my hands are clean again, I can close this bag up. Try to get the most air out of the bag as possible. I'm gonna toast this to combine. Okay, they all look nicely coated. So I'm going to let the rest of the air out. And I find that this is one of the easiest ways. Because like that, all the marinade stays right in here. And there's no air left. And I can put it into the fridge like this. And it'll marinate beautifully. Now you want to do this for a minimum of 2 hours. Or up to overnight. So I'm doing this first thing in the morning. And we'll come back to it later today. And I'll have sit and marinate it for a nice amount of time by the time we come back to it. For the challah, I've been making it the same way that I used to, but I started doing it in a pot instead of a crock pot, and we've been enjoying it a lot more. So what I do different is that I heat up some oil in the pot. I'm gonna get the onions in there, And we're gonna let this caramelize for a little bit. And while this is going, I'm gonna get out all my spices and sauces that I use for this. Okay, now that this has started to soften and is developing some color on it, we're gonna start adding the rest of our ingredients. And we're gonna start off with the beans. And I do a 1/3 cup of kidney beans, a 1/3 cup of baby lima beans. So I've been thinking I probably should be soaking these beans overnight now that I do it like this. When I cook it low and slow in the crock pot, it's fine. A 1/3 cup of barley. But because now I do a quicker cook on these beans, I probably should be soaking them overnight. So I'll try to remember to do that next week. And a 1/3 cup of navy beans. For spices, we're going to be adding salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, a bit of cayenne pepper, pepper flakes, some umami. Umami is a flavor that is created by browning anything. So yes, I'm getting a little bit of that flavor from sauteing the onions, but that adds this adds an additional depth of flavor. Now this umami spice is created with mushroom, so it adds an additional meaty flavor as well because mushrooms gives you that. I'm gonna add some date syrup, soy sauce. I'm gonna add in a potato that I've cubed up. About between a 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch cubes. And now I'll add water. Probably like 3/4 full. Okay. Now we're gonna let it come up to a boil. I'm gonna cover it, let it come up to a boil. Once it boils, I'm gonna lower the heat and let it simmer all day long, mixing every hour or so to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom. And once it starts sticking to the bottom, or it's time for Shabbos to start, whichever comes first, I'm going to turn off the heat and get it into the oven. The oven will be set to 200 and we'll let it cook till Shabbos morning. It is now actually quite a while later. I put up the kugel. The kugel's already out of the oven. I put up chont, cooked some eggs, got myself ready for the day, went out to the garden, did some harvesting. So I've been busy, even though you guys didn't see me. And now we're gonna work on our radish salad. So right now my garden is in between radish harvests, so I had to buy this. So I bought 1 bundle and I got 7 radishes. So I'm gonna adjust the recipe. I'm gonna do like half the recipe. So I left the tops on so that I have something to grip on while I slice it on my mandolin. And you want these nice and thin. You can do this with a knife too. I just feel like it's a lot easier and a lot faster to do it with a mandolin. And you're getting more consistent slices. Okay, now that we've got all of our radishes sliced, and look at these beautiful, equally thin slices that we got. Beautifully thin. I'm gonna add all of these radishes to the bowl that I'm gonna be serving it in. And I am using plastic, like I said, with the containers, because I am taking this to wherever we're gonna be for Shabbos. And I don't wanna have to worry about having to plate it up then, or about bringing these things home. So now we're gonna do the same thing with the cucumbers. So I'm gonna cut off one end of it. And with the same thickness on the mandolin, we're gonna cut these cucumbers as well. This is so much faster than I could have done it with a knife. We're gonna add this. We're gonna add the cucumbers to our bowl as well. And do I need to cut up anything else before I remove the board? Yeah, we need parsley, dill, and green onions. So let me get those out. So we're gonna chop up the dill and the parsley. So I'll just do it together. So I like to first cut through all of it a little bit. And now I'm gonna do the same action that I do when I mince to get these nice and chopped up. Okay, now I can get all of this parsley and dill into our bowl as well. And now we're gonna get our green onions or scallions and cut them super thin. We're gonna add these into the bowl. And then we can work on the dressing part of this. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So the full recipe calls for 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. So I'm going to do 1/4 plus 1/8, and then 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. So I'm going to do 1/8. And you can add more to taste. But first, let's mix this together. And it's probably best to let this sit and marinate before you taste it and adjust for seasoning, because you want the radishes and the salt to really take it on and get the flavor. So this is a great prep ahead type of salad. This is for presentation purposes only. I'm gonna wipe down the ends. And right before serving, I'm gonna check for spices. Hopefully I remember. I'm gonna cover this, set it in the fridge. Okay, the next thing we'll be working on is our green goddess salad. Gonna do the same thing. I feel like it's a hearty enough salad that we can prep it now and it'll stay good. Okay, I pulled up the recipe for that. I'm gonna bring the cutting board back. And I've got our salad bowl that we're going to be using for this salad. I've got some sugar snap peas here that I have cleaned. And we're going to cut this on the diagonal. So I'm going to get rid of the end part that was attached to the plant. And we need them about 1/4 inch thick. They should look like this. And as I cut it, I'll get it into the bowl. I think it'll actually be a lot easier if I cut off the tops first and then I come back through and cut on the diagonal. So we're going to do that first. Okay, now that I've got all the tops off, I can get back to cutting them up. If we like the salad and I make it again, I would probably focus on getting like these bigger, thicker snappies, because I think those will end up better in the salad, because like they have the peas inside. The smaller, flatter ones won't have the same bite. Okay, the next 2 ingredients will be a cucumber chopped. I'm gonna try to get them roughly about the same size as the peas. Actually, it'll be smaller. Add that to the bowl. We're gonna thinly slice these green onions. Okay, the last vegetable prep that we need to do here is some cabbage. I took off the first 2 outer leaves. The recipe does say to do half of a cabbage head. So what I'm going to do is I'm holding it upside down. I'm going to start from the base, but I'm going to cut it on an angle so that I don't really get the core into this. There we go. I don't really have any core in there. Nice. The way that I store the cabbage once I cut into it is that I just cover it with saran wrap, get it nice and tight. I will need 2 pieces today because it's still quite big. And this is the way that it stays freshest for longest in the fridge. And now we want this finely chopped. So I'm gonna start by cutting it one way. Once I've got it all cut through, I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. I'm gonna cut it in the opposite direction, but I think I'll work with half of it at a time so that my knife gets through it a lot easier, because I'm not using a very big knife today. Now we're gonna add a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. Gonna give this a quick mix. Look at all the different greens in here. It's beautiful. Now this salad we're not gonna mix yet because this is the dressing that we prepped yesterday for it, the one with avocado and the shallots and all the herbs and stuff. So I don't want it to mix it in right now because I don't want the avocados to go brown on me. So instead we're going to add the dressing in here, but it's going to make it a lot easier to transport because everything will be together, and it'll be easier when it comes to serving. Whoever takes it out of the fridge will know that this is the dressing that goes with it, and we'll be able to toss it right before eating. So another thing done. Okay, for the next thing, we're gonna start prepping our salmon salad. For that, I'm gonna start off with some lettuce here that I have from the garden. And this was harvested a week ago already. And I stored in the bag with a damp paper towel. And that helps preserve the crunch and the crisp of it. Because if the lettuce gets too dry, the moisture from the towel keeps it nice and wet and moist. But if it's too much, then the paper towel will absorb all of that moisture. So for this, I'm just tearing the lettuce into bite-sized pieces. I love tearing the lettuce. I love the texture that it gets. That's not perfectly cut. And just so much fun playing with the food. They're all going to be slightly different sizes. And I think that's so enjoyable when you're eating it. I've got a container with the dressing. Also going to transfer all of the fish that we cooked yesterday for this. Oh no, this is the wrong one. Fish cubes into a container here so that we can add it to our bowl without it getting the lettuce soggy before we're ready to eat. I'm gonna get all of this, or some of this sauce, over top the fish because this has so much flavor. And before we're ready to eat, I would take this out of the fridge a little bit earlier. Let it come to room temperature because I think the flavor is a lot better that way than eating it cold. And like that, we have the sauce that flavored it also sitting there and adding additional flavor. Let's make space for this. Okay. And now we're gonna set this in the fridge, covered. But if I have time later, I'm going to make croutons to go along with this. And if I get to do that, I would probably put a parchment paper over top, lay the croutons on top of that. Oh no, actually I would want the croutons to stay crispy. And if I put it into the fridge with this, it won't stay crispy. Okay. So no, this is it. And we have another dish done. And ready to be plated up when we're ready for it. Okay, I'm gonna do a few different things right now, and we'll come back when we get going on our last few things. Okay, since we used up the lettuce for the fish salad, I went out, I harvested some more. I cleaned them, and we're gonna plate up the second fish, and like that it's ready for us. So I have here a lettuce that is sort of like an iceberg lettuce. It's a head lettuce, so they're all gonna have like the same shape. I'm gonna lay them out around the board. I probably could have used a bit more. I flipped off of the parchment paper beautifully, so it's really good that we did that. I'm gonna bring the lettuce in a bit more, and we're gonna lay the fish on top of the lettuce. Okay, now for this, the recipe says to take lemon, cut them into rounds, and cut some slits halfway in. And it says to place it on the fish, like so. So you get a little bit of a view of the rind, some of the inside. But because I don't want the panko to get soggy, I'm just gonna lay the lemon slices that I prepped over top of the lettuce. And when I'm ready to serve, I'm gonna display it. I'm gonna arrange it like I showed you on top of the fish itself. And we got our little dressing or sauce that will go over top of it as well. I'm gonna get that over here. And for this tray, I did buy a cover. I didn't know how tall it'll end up being, and if I needed, this way it'll be easier to stack when we travel. Another thing ready to go. Look at that beauty. Beautiful. I just realized I didn't have my mic on, so I hope that you were able to hear what I said. We're gonna start working on our sauce that we will baste over our sticky soy steak bites. So I'm going to start off with a 1-inch piece of ginger that I'm going to peel, and I find that this is the easiest way to peel it, using a spoon because the skin is so thin. It just comes right off. Now this piece is bigger than 1 inch, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna grate it until I feel like I got 1 inch off of this. I think we are there. Here I have the white parts and light green parts of 1 scallion, sliced thinly. I also cut up the green parts, but we're gonna save that for later. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Okay, next we're adding 6 tablespoons of honey, 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. And the last thing we'll do is grate in some garlic. So we're going to turn on the heat for this now. And ideally I would not be doing it on such a big flame. Should I move it over? I think I will. So we're going to bring the chont to the front here. I'm going to let this go in the back. So we're going to let this cook down and reduce to just a couple tablespoons. You want it nice and thick. Okay, while we got that going on, we're letting our sauce come up to temperature, I am going to prepare our kielbasa to go in the grill. And this is a kielbasa that the butcher in my supermarket makes themselves. So it's an in-store specialty. You won't be able to find this anywhere else. And it could be hard to peel sometimes, to remove the outer layer, the outer skin, the casing. So I'm gonna work on this first. Okay, it was not too bad today. We have to remember to keep on stirring this. And our chont is bubbling way too much. I don't like that. I think I'll just turn it off and I will move it back to the back burner when we're ready and turn the heat back on. It's okay if it sits for a little bit without it. Now, I'm just going to use 2 skewers. They're very thin skewers, so they're not going to help me too much. It's going to be better than nothing. And I'm just going to cut slits into this. And we're sort of pre-slicing this. Okay, that is ready for us. Okay, next thing we're going to prep is the corn. So I'm getting a 9x13 pan here. I gave myself some convenience by buying the pre-shucked fresh corn. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, oh, it's juicy, through the core.
So I've actually made this corn already since I made it for the Shabbos. And what I did differently was that I first blanched it for about 3 minutes, dunked it into an ice bath, and then I used a bigger knife to cut through, and it cut super easily without any problems.
Okay, once it's cut in half, I'm going to cut it into half again. And we've got a corn riblet, is what we call it. So it's just 1/4 of a corn. So I'm going to cut it and get it into the pan. I think the last time I made this corn, my store had corn riblets actually. So I didn't have to do this part. Okay, I got the spices out for this. And I'm gonna do half the recipe because the recipe calls for 20 to 24 ears of corn. Yeah, is it ears? No, sorry, 20 to 24 corn riblets. So I got 3 corns, 3 times 4 is 12, so half, yeah. Half should be perfect. Some smoked paprika, salt, garlic powder, onion powder, the juice of half a lime, and some oil. Okay, now that I've got our spices mixed together in here, we're going to brush it over our corn. I'm going to make sure that all of these are well coated. And we can set that aside. The last thing we're going to prep here is the meat, and we're going to skewer them with onions in between. So I want to clean off this board a little bit. So we need 3/4 inch pieces. So I think I'll cut it into 3. Three again, and then half. I'm gonna get the onions into my pan here, along with a half a teaspoon of kosher salt and 1 tablespoon of oil. We're gonna toast this to combine it. And we're gonna separate these so that they're about 2 to 3 onions thick. Okay, now I have here the meat that we marinated earlier. And we're gonna start skewering. So I'm gonna put in a piece of meat, onion, and we're gonna do about 4 to 5 pieces of meat per skewer.
As you'll see in a minute, that when it came to grilling these skewers, I was a bit rushed to finish up and get back into the house. For that reason, this meat didn't cook to the desired doneness that we would have liked. And we felt like it was too big of a bite when we actually ate it, that it had to be like a 2-bite piece of meat instead of just a 1 bite. So I did make this again because I wanted to make sure, because we love the recipe, we love the sauce, we love the marinade, we love the flavors. So I actually made this already again since, and I cut it into slightly smaller pieces. I think I did like 1/2 inch pieces, and we grilled it for a bit longer. And I actually let my husband grill it because he's the grill master, honestly, in the family. So he grilled it and with the smaller pieces, and it was perfectly done. And actually, the second time I made it, I didn't mix the onions with the salt and oil like I did over here. I forgot about it, and it was still delicious.
Okay, that was the last piece of meat. Let me wash my hands. And now we're gonna take our kielbasa that we prepped, along with our 2 pans. And we're gonna head out to the grill. Okay, our oven here is beautifully preheated. It's really nice and hot. I'm actually gonna lower the heat a little bit. Okay, we only turned on 3. So what I'm gonna do is first brush this off a little bit. I'm gonna get the skewers right over here at the edge with the end of the skewer sticking out. The kielbasa I'm gonna put at the end that just gets the residual heat. And then we're gonna get our corn ribs on here as well. Gonna start off with our bigger pieces here. And we can throw our smaller pieces behind the skewers. I'm gonna close this, let it cook for 2 minutes. Okay, I went inside, I got out the sauce that we made, along with the pastry brush again. And right now we can flip our skewers 90 degrees. So we're gonna grill it on each of the 4 sides. Wow, it's looking beautiful already. Okay, it's been another 2 to 3 minutes. So we're gonna turn our skewers again. We'll have a look at the corn. Starting to brown, not quite ready to be flipped. Okay, we're gonna flip these one more time. And now we have just about a minute left on these kebabs. So we're gonna get the sauce and brush it onto our skewers for the last minute or so of grilling. Okay, we're gonna let this cook for 1 more minute. Okay, at this point our skewers are done. I'm gonna take them out and I'm gonna put them over the pan that had the corn. Just having to make some space here. Ooh. And I think our corn is ready to be flipped. Yeah, it has some nice color on there.
I take back what I said earlier, that I was forced to take meat off earlier than expected. I cooked it according to what the recipe said, but I guess because I used a different cut of meat, maybe it needed a different amount of cooking. But like I said, the next time I made it, I cut it smaller and cooked it for longer, and it was delicious.
It started raining, but luckily I am under a cover. And we're gonna flip this one more time to try to get some of that corn nice and charred, the actual corn. It's been such a rainy weather so far this summer. Over the last couple of weeks, I can count on one hand how many times I had to actually water my garden. These are looking beautiful. Okay, I hope you can hear me over the pouring rain right now. We're gonna remove the corn and we're gonna set it straight into the pan that we had prepped it in. Okay, I managed not to get anything wet or really wet while I was bringing them in. And these are almost ready. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the kielbasa all the way through. So I'm going to bring my board over and I'm just going to finish the cuts. By doing it this way, it stays juicy inside and you're not going to lose any pieces while you're flipping them in the grill, which is very common to happen. I probably could have left this on a little bit longer because the center of it is just starting to become warm. So not all of the fat has rendered, but these won't all be eaten right away, so they're gonna congeal again anyways. Now we're gonna get to assembling this. Okay, so to do that, I got a tray just like the one for the fish, but a slightly bigger one. And I did this off camera, but I just finished cooking some rice. And it's just about ready to be fluffed. So I'm gonna lay this down in the tray and I'm gonna spread it out to cover about 3/4 of the tray or half of the tray. But I don't think I want it under the corn. Now I'm gonna take our skewers, and with the fork that I used for the rice, you can't even see fully what I'm doing. There you go. I'm just going to slide it off one at a time. For this, we're going to take the green parts of the scallions that we reserved earlier, and we're going to sprinkle that over top of our meat here. Oh, that is looking so good. Oh my goodness. And some toasted sesame seeds as well, just for that pop of color. Gorgeous! Oh my goodness. I'm getting so excited for this. Next, I'm going to take our kielbasa and I'm going to stack that over the rice as well. I should probably get the corn on here to make sure that I have enough space for those before I finish with kielbasa. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to get our kielbasa in here to fill it up. Now we're going to take the remaining half of a lime that we used for the corn. I'm going to cut it into 4 wedges, and I'm just going to lay it over top the corn, and if anybody wants, they can take it and squeeze it over the corn. Okay, so this also has a cover. I'm not going to cover it yet because it's still hot. But this is now ready to go as well. So we are all ready. We just have to pack everything up and then we can head out. And I'll show you how we pack all of this up to travel. I tried to wrap them up the best possible to make it easy to go. Yeah. Let me make sure that I got everything that we need. Okay, the sourdough still has to go in a bag.
So guys, now that all the food is ready, I laid out all the fridge stuff on the counter so they can be boxed up to be able to be transported to where we're staying for Shabbos. And as you can see, I am taking along some stuff that I either cooked off camera or some other stuff that I prepped. Like the bag on top of the 2 trays is some lettuce. There is some hard-boiled eggs, which I take wherever I go nowadays because it's a great breakfast or snack. We grabbed some garlic scape infused oil, which we had made in the past. If you saw me harvesting the garlic scapes, I made it in that video. We're also taking some potato kugel, and we grabbed from the freezer some muffins and bun cakes. The bun cakes you'll see in a future video I made already in the past, but I did it again where I prepped a bunch of bun cakes, froze it, and whenever I need some I grab it, and it was perfect for this occasion.
And we're going to cover it with foil.
So guys, this is it for this video. If you enjoyed this, I know it's a long one, but if you took the time to watch it and you enjoyed it all, consider hitting this like button, and I hope that you will hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.
Okay, ready to go.